Clinical trials are extremely important, and there are many reasons why. First and foremost, as you know, there is no cure for the disease, and we always are trying to find cure. So the clinical trials that we're conducting now, they are aimed at establishing more effective drugs, the drugs that can cure you or at least cause long-term remissions. We don't know what's the best approach is among many other therapies. Some of the clinical trials are directed to identify the best therapy, to identify the best combination of the therapy for the patient. And so it's extremely important that patients are open-minded about clinical trials. Again, the clinical trials now are conducted under very strict supervision.
One should seriously consider a clinical trial when their treatments aren't working. When standard of care approved treatments aren't working, I think that's when the patient can look to drugs that are in clinical trials, experimental drugs, providing they're available to them, they can participate, and that the benefit of these drugs outweigh the risks. So that we use a series of treatments all geared at attacking the lymphoma from different angles. And so if the new experimental drug provides a new angle that in treatment, a new target for treatment that hasn't been used before, and that the safety profile is reasonable, then I think a patient should consider it seriously. The other thing is the level of clinical trials. There's 3 typical phases of clinical trials. Phase 1 is to test safety, and so that's a different type of clinical trial when there's really no guaranteed efficacy or that the drug will work. Then phase 2 is dose finding. So patients typically on a phase 2 trial will get the drug. They may not get we may not know all of the side effects, but at least they'll get a drug at a dose that should be working. And then a phase 3 trial tests the experimental drug against the standard of care. So in that situation, they're really getting, I'll say, the best of both worlds. And the bottom line is that without clinical trials, there can be no pipeline in development of new drugs.
In general, if the patient has a particular clinical need, which generally can be revealed by discussions with the physician, that a clinical trial is very fit to address, I think that's a good reason. Other reasons are, for example, if there are no other treatment that the patient has responded to, and there's a new drug available, that could be one good reason.
I would say that if you are responding to your therapy, you're happy with your therapy, the therapy in question is able to put your skin into clinical remission, probably a clinical trial isn't for you. Why upset the apple cart? But for patients that their disease is progressing along and conventional therapies have been tried and failed, that might be the time to consider a clinical trial.
Of course, we cannot always promise that you will do well. We cannot always promise that this drug is going to be an answer, and that's why we are doing the clinical trials. But there is always hope that next drug is going to be better than the previous one.